This week on Hands on Tech, we're going to take a look at some awesome 6K footage from Blackmagic Design.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by iFixit. Visit ifixit.com/hot to get $10 off your next $50 fix. Hey folks, I'm Ant Pruitt here on Hands on Tech on twit.tv, and I have the honor and privilege to be here with Mr. Alex Lindsay. Oh man, sorry y'all, I'm fanboying just a little bit.
It's good
oh
to
my
be here.
gosh, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
I got to shake your hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got it. Oh my gosh, wow. Yeah, this is Hands on Tech here on twit.tv, and Mr. Lindsay is here because we have some pretty nice cameras right here. These are the Blackmagic Design 6K cameras, folks. We're not talking 1080p. We're not talking 4K. We're talking 6K. And the thing is, we didn't want to do a shootout. We just wanted to talk a little bit about what this camera can do, who this camera is for, pluses, minuses, all that good stuff. But if anybody's going to know, it's going to be this guy. He's going to know all about it.
So I got the camera a couple, almost right after. I ordered it right when it was announced. But then I got it like a month later. So, you know, it was back ordered for quite some time. But I've been able to take it to a couple parts of the world and take a look. We're gonna post some of the footage for people to look at. You know, the big thing for this is that it's an incredible amount of camera for $2,500.
Right. Now,
I mean, I think that's the
compare this one to the 4K model that Blackmagic has.
Well, the cool thing is software is very similar, right? So most of the controls that you're going to have within the camera, if you go from a 4K or a 6K or you're jumping back and forth, you're going to find that interface to be identical, which is really awesome. The big difference is, of course, you get 6K. You also get a Super 35 sensor. So you're going to have a larger sensor that's going to give you better low light. It's also going to give you a shorter depth of field.
Now, see, it totally fascinated me going back to their 4K that they were able to produce that on that smaller Micro Four Thirds sensor. Right. And it looked great. But then when you go up to the Super 35 and see this 6K,
looks even better.
Oh my goodness! It brought a tear to my eye when I looked at how good this
and I have really enjoyed this footage. I've shot. I took it to IBC for in Amsterdam. I just got back from Cambodia and India where I shot a little bit with it, and I have loved working with the camera. I love the fact that it's EF mount. Right. This simplifies a lot. I have a lot of Canon lenses. Right. So it's great for me to be able to just take my Canon lenses, throw them on. They look great. They pop in. They're run from the camera. So if I'm changing aperture, all that stuff is still part of the camera. Right.
It's all sort of integrated in. When I spoke with the representatives, prior to doing the review, they said that was a conscious effort of going with the EF mount versus going with the M mounts or anything like that, because everybody is out there shooting with Canon glass.
Well, and not only that, it's easy to find Canon glass. If you're going to go to borrow lenses or someone else that does that, it's going to be a lot easier to find it. Anywhere in the world, you're going to be able to find a very wide variety of lenses, which is really a great feature for the camera.
Right. Now, I'm looking at this device compared to yours. Yours looks slightly different.
I accessorized mine a little bit. So a couple things that I've added here. So this is a small rig ectoskeleton. Now, Wooden Camera makes one. There's a lot of other ones. I happen to get this one. I have to admit, it was a relatively cost-effective, rig. This is my rig, so it's not like a demo unit. This is me. This is what I shoot with. Right. This small rig is just an ectoskeleton that allows me to add a lot of other pieces. And anytime you really start shooting, you're going to very quickly start moving to adding some kind of ectoskeleton, cheese plates. It's something that we're used to doing for almost everything.
Right. The people in the cinema world, they're used to having.
This is still a simple rig. Like once I haven't added the rails or the focus assist or any of those things, but those are coming. I'm kind of figuring out what I want to put in there.
Right. I give you a week.
Yeah, exactly. It also protects the camera a little bit. So you're really building something around it that it can take a little bit of a hit one way or the other, and you're not putting all that pressure on the camera. It is a plastic frame, so I do keep that under consideration.
Now, for the people that are out there thinking, well, if I go out and get a 6K camera, all I need to do is go buy an SD card, right? A bunch of big SD cards.
It takes an SD card. Yeah. It takes SD. But yeah, it burns through the SD. Now, if you're doing 6K, and especially if you're doing Blackmagic RAW, you're going to go through that data really fast.
Quickly.
I have a so I have in here. I have a couple CFast cards.
Right.
So I got these CFast cards. I got specifically for when we're shooting with the Mini Ursa. So I had a couple of them laying around. 128 gigs is 8 minutes.
Not enough.
You know, it's like the old film reel. You know,
not
back when we were shooting film, a reel was like 7 minutes long, and so this is like an old film reel. Is this little 128 gigs, and the CFast are really expensive. Now there is also an SD card, so you can do that. And here's why the SD card's important. If you're on fast run and gun and you want to do something that you're going to post on YouTube that minute, or you know, especially if you're doing news-related content, being able to shoot something at 4K or even HD and being able to just pump it out is valuable.
And that's good. You're not having the same bit rate on those either, so you don't have to worry about this right speed on that particular card, versus if you're going to utilize this magical 6K, I highly recommend doing what you did with this SSD on the top of it.
Yeah, this is the Samsung T5. This is a 1 terabyte. I think these come up to 5 terabytes or 4 terabytes, and so I got the 1 terabyte. It's, you know, I felt like cost effectively it was a good number. And for one, I'd rather have multiples of these than a bigger one. So even if it was a little bit more expensive, putting all of your day shoots or all of your project shoots onto one drive is scary.
No.
And so,
I don't recommend that either.
And so while I have the CFast in the side is there specifically as a backup. Like if something goes wrong with my drive, if for some reason, and I have had a couple times where it took me a couple seconds to get it to recognize. So now, and basically what's happening here is, you know, these are your inputs here. So you have our audio. Little funny. So this camera is the only device that I have ever seen with a female TA3.
A little odd.
It's a little odd. You're like, come on. Like, so every cable that you would get is not, that I have a lot of cables for TA3. And yeah, they don't, none of them worked. I had to get if you go on search on Amazon or B&H, it's the Blackmagic. You're like, oh, come on. Anyway, so anyway, but it works great. I don't use it that much. I usually just use, I use the mics on the camera, and then I'll show you what I do with the audio in a second. But it's good to have. You want to be able to get clean audio in there. Now you've got power. I've got an extra big battery that I use for that.
Now, these come spec to work with the LPE6 Canon batteries,
which will last like 10 seconds.
Yeah, they're totally useless for this. Now, if you're just using it in your regular DSLR or whatever, fine.
It's not totally useless.
I got 5 minutes.
Okay, so and were you, now here's the question: were you using a true Canon battery, or were you using
I've used both.
Okay, because I found that the Canon batteries, even on 6K, will get me 20, 30 minutes.
Really? What was I doing wrong?
Unless it's an older battery. So if it's discharging quickly, the one thing that I have found is that the 6K is pushing the battery really hard. If you have a off-brand Canon battery, sometimes you just start hitting record and it just stops. It's just like, nope, you can't do it, because it's not getting the voltage that it expects. And so you have to use Canon brand batteries. They have to be relatively new. And in that case, I've been getting 20 to 30 minutes on those batteries.
So maybe my battery is just too old.
You have to, like, my batteries are pretty mint, you know, mostly because the Canon batteries just sat around, because for a Canon camera, the use of the battery is so low that cheap knockoffs work fine.
They work fine.
But for this, they do not.
You need the juice. You need the juice.
So you also have USB-C. So that's how we're hooking our drives up and so on and so forth. Full-size HDMI, which is super useful.
Unheard of in most cameras.
It was really, really great to put that in there. And then of course you have a headphone output and a microphone input. And again, you can use that. In fact, you can use this with what I have below here, which is, this is a kind of a dual review. But this is the Sound Devices Mix Pre 3. And this is the new one with 32-bit float, which means that it's almost impossible to peak it. So you can't, if you're shooting an interview, you want to make sure you're going to come back with good audio. Don't use, and this is not the Blackmagic camera. This is, you should not use the preamps on a camera for your primary audio. Now for news, they do that, and that's fine, because you know it's disposable content, right? So, but
most of the time, please go with the
if you're doing a documentary, you're doing something that's important to you, you're doing something that you think is going to last, you want to have a real recorder. Now, this is the smallest version of what I use, and again, the reason that I use the USB 3 is because it's got 32-bit float, which means that if my levels are a little off, a little low, a little high, I can always go back and correct them.
Right.
You know, and as someone who's an all-in-one, if I'm going there by myself and I don't have an audio engineer, I want to know that I can get, I got the levels close.
Right. Get a little bit of headroom to play around with it.
And people often ask, well, why don't I use a Zoom, or why don't I go this cheaper and everything else? Well, it depends on how valuable your content is. You know, the preamps here are considerably better.
Right.
So you've got a noise floor of negative 128. Ooh. So you can really shoot something quiet, and if you have this set to full quality, you're going to get that all back.
Oh,
so,
yes.
So really, this is the way to do it. Now, what I do is I like to just say, I'm going to take the audio. This is kind of almost my backup audio.
Right.
So I use the microphones on the camera. I let it record there, and then I record this separately. And then later,
just go back and
I'll
sync
go back
it
and
with the
I'll
clap.
sync. Yeah, or I just sync. Once you get used to looking at waveforms,
right.
You know, we didn't have jam sync for a long time,
no.
so I'm so used to it. It doesn't even occur to me like, you just throw the audio in. You look at it, you go like this,
right.
and then you go in and hit, +1, minus one, -1, and then you get it just where it needs.
Just
you're like,
close, right?
You know, so I think that it's for me, it's not a big deal. But and you can't use time code and other things like that. So there's ways to you can get these to you can't gen lock them together, but you can time code them together. So anyway, it's great. I think the biggest thing for me is this interface.
Right. It's so simple and straightforward.
I've owned a lot of cameras.
Yeah. Shocking.
I know. I mean, someone asked me like how many cameras, and I think I bought somewhere between 30 and 40 different kinds of video cameras.
Man.
And so this is the best interface for any camera I have ever used. And what's nice about it is that almost everything is on a heads-up display. If I want to, let me make sure I don't get the reflection there. But if I want to, for instance, change my white balance, there it is. I just move it around on the front. I'm not chasing some interface, trying to figure it out. I want to change my ISO. I want to change the iris on the lens. I want to change my shutter angle to make adjustments for that. I want to, change my frame rate. There it is. This is for high frame rate if I want to go that way.
Right.
And so everything is sitting here right on the edge. I also have great. This is, you can kind of see a weird color there. That's false color. And when I'm looking at that, what that's telling me is the blue and the purple are going to be underexposed. I'm going to lose detail.
Right.
This green and gray is fine as far as exposure goes.
Yep.
And anything that's red or yellow is on your way to trouble.
Right.
Red is you're in trouble. So I have my false color. I also have my focus here, which I changed the function there. And then I can turn my LUTs on and off, which is important.
Right, and I like the actual hardware function buttons on there that you can program them to do whatever you want. And even though you went through and changed like the iris and so forth on the touch screen, you can also use just a regular dial right here on the front to move a lot of that stuff around too.
Exactly.
They make it super intuitive with this.
It is. I mean, I think the one complaint I have is the stills. There's no feedback when you shoot the still. So you're taking a picture and there's no like
it just sort of goes away.
Vibrate or whatever. It just does its thing, and you're like, I don't know if it actually took a picture. So that's been my only thing is like there's no feedback of. I couldn't see any feedback when I was working on it. Now you also have very intuitive. If you've used Blackmagic cameras before, this interface is very intuitive. So you're going to be able to change your frame rate. You have a sensor area.
Right.
So this is important, especially when if you're in here and you go to ProRes and you're going to do Ultra HD, you can make a decision about whether you're doing a 6K sensor or let's say a 5.7.
Right.
The reason the 5.7 is important is it's the only way to get to 5994. I don't know what it is. It's a bummer because it will go to 50. So if I go to 6K Blackmagic RAW, and my max is now 50 frames a second, which makes sense in Europe, less in the United States. We really like to have a full 2x on our 30p, but it's okay. So anyway, it is all of this interface is, in my opinion, again, the best interface I've ever had on a camera, which makes a huge difference. It may seem like a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference that I'm able to very quickly, jump on the camera and I make fine adjustments as fast as possible. The fact that you have that all at your fingertips makes a massive difference in how quickly you can make sure that you're going to get a good shot, especially when you're under under time pressure.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by iFixit. If you got a cracked screen or a bad battery in your phone, iFixit makes it easy to fix your iOS or Android device yourself with their all-in-one fix kits. In the kit, you get the part and tools backed by industry-leading warranty and step-by-step instructions with amazing photos and videos to show you how it's done. They even have kits for the tiny devices like the Apple Watch. Visit ifixit.com/hot to get $10 off your next $50 fix. That's ifixit.com/hot. Now, you mentioned Blackmagic Raw.
Yep.
A lot of people are not going to quite understand what that means.
And it's not really truly raw.
It's
good.
It's not just like picking up your phone or any of these DSLRs or what have you to shoot video. You're going to get a much flatter profile, and you're going to need a whole lot of horsepower to even go into looking at post-processing.
Right. If you're trying to do a fast run and gun, then you can always go in here and you can set it to ProRes, and you can have it HQ 422. I mean, if you're really shooting like news, I would just set it to LT. It's fast. It's proxy is too low. I don't know what people use. I would never shoot in proxy.
Right.
And maybe you might deliver it to clients for review in proxy, but you would never
finish it there.
No, don't do that. So even you may say, well, it's more than H.264, but it doesn't look nearly as good.
Right.
So don't do that. LT. Average is if you're going to do something that is really important to you, then you use HQ. I wish it went a little higher, but that's fine. Now, the other thing is, just because you're in ProRes, you have to remember that you are also making decisions on your record as to whether you're using, I have it always set to film in my dynamic range.
Okay.
So that's how I shoot it, because I know that I'm going to take it in and do color correction.
Right.
So what that does is it shoots in what we tend to refer to as log.
Right.
So this is a log, and basically, instead of linear, where it's just 0 to white, it basically is this curve where it's very hard to hit white.
Right.
And what that means is you have a little less in the dark areas, but you have a lot. And this is when you're dealing with sky, highlights, all those things.
You're going to be a lot easier to recover it.
Exactly. Well, there is no recovery on digital.
All right.
So this gets you closer to what we used to always have in film. And I admit, because I worked in film and we used to scan everything in log, the idea of working with linear and log was very comfortable. Right. In fact, you feel like you're, when you're shooting in linear, with video, extended video is kind of this halfway in between. But when you're shooting in video, what you've done is you've created a very small landing strip.
Right.
So when it's like you're flying a plane in, and the landing strip now is, instead of being this 2-mile landing strip, it's like 300 feet.
Whoops.
And so now you have to get it just right.
Right.
And that's what filmmakers really complained about for a long time, was the fact that video was giving them such a small landing. And you may think, well, they should just be more professional and be able to hit that smaller landing. But the problem is that we've got 1,000 things.
You have variables, lots and lots of variables to consider.
The sky is changing and things are coming through and people have lights and we're in a rush and there's 100 people and you can't wait forever. And so there's all these, there's all these other factors that go on in production.
Right.
And so taking away that ability to have, that many stops of correction really means just you just end up with less good work.
Now, when you're doing your color correction, they recommend using DaVinci.
Which is what I do.
Okay.
So I do my first light in DaVinci. So so I'll go into DaVinci and typically I'm opening them there, I'm looking at them there, I'm making adjustments there, and then typically what I'm going to do then is export that out as now I do all my editing in Final Cut. So I'm going to export those out as ProRes, and then I'm going to bring them into Final Cut. But DaVinci's kind of my first place to work in those. I've been playing with DaVinci as an editing package, and I've also been playing with Final Cut as a color correction package.
Oh wow, you're flipping the script.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, where I'd love to just work in one of them. Right. So they blend. Obviously, DaVinci does a lot of what Final Cut does. Final Cut does more of what DaVinci, is constantly moving that direction. So they're both moving towards each other. I think that there are times when I really like this all-in-one approach that DaVinci's done, which is all the audio's there, fusion's there, all these things are, all the color corrections there, and I can edit it.
Right.
That works most of the time for me, but there are times when I just need to cut it. And when I just need to cut something quickly, the simplified interface of Final Cut, is for me much easier to work with.
And see, and I'm an Adobe guy, so hopping into DaVinci, it's sort of turning my world upside down. And I'm struggling a little bit, but fortunately there are plugins with the Blackmagic Raw where you can put it into Premiere Pro and still get your work done and use the Lumetri panel for managing color and so forth in there. And it works really good as long as you have a computer that's not necessarily running a Pentium 4 processor.
Yeah, I mean, any of these, unpacking these RAW, I mean, when I started shooting RAW, we were shooting on Reds, and that was, you know, just crush the computer.
Yeah, it makes a computer weep.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, and a lot of people also ask about 6K versus 4K. Like, we have 8K coming somewhere, you know, and then we have 4K. Why do we need 6K? Well, 6K does, I think, believe two things. One is we can oversample. So if we take that 6K and we shrink it down to 4K, when we rebuild that using typically bicubic scaling, we end up with a smoother image.
Right.
Corrects a lot of little bits and pieces, grain, that type of thing. Also, if we leave it at 6K, our ability to pan and scan a little bit, make fine adjustments to our framing.
So much easier, and you're not losing any quality, especially if you're pan it, zooming in and out. It's similar to what people are, how they felt with 4K versus 1080p. They're like, that additional freedom that 4K gave them, even though they're going to output to 1080p. You know, so it's the same concept here. I totally dig what the 6K footage looks like and the ability to go in and just manipulate it, particularly from this particular camera, because of you're not going to lose any quality going in there and trying to push the color grading. You know, it's been a lot of fun, but again, I highly recommend people getting yourself a nice GPU for your effects and getting a nice processor, you know, something Core i9.
And I have i7 and it works okay. You know, it's it's okay in i7, but obviously it would be great to have more. But, you know, but I think, you know, it works fine. But again, I don't do a lot of, in my workflow currently, I'm mostly grabbing this footage, converting it to ProRes, and then going from there. You know, and so I'm not, you know, I do like to have all that data, but I don't necessarily work with it. And the people who watch this, they say that's a very inefficient way to work, because now you're finalizing something and pushing it out and everything else. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, there's a certain practicality that I have right now that what I'm using this for. I'm not going to get into the projects right now, but this is crazy overkill. Like, just, you know, like this is about as overkill as you can get. So I'm already there, and so there's a little bit of that practicality to me to get it out the door.
No, I get that. Now, before we get out of here, one last question: who is this Blackmagic 6K for? Who is this for? Is this for the folks aspiring to be Casey Neistat and vlogging, going down the streets of Manhattan? Is this for the news station? Who is this particular camera for?
Well, I think that for a news station, it's a little hard because it's still more of a filmmaker type thing, you know. So I think that if you look at, you know, there's more to it. Now, I will say that if I was going to shoot news, I would shoot it with this camera. But I don't. But I would say I'm probably more technical than a lot of. And I know people are going to be really upset I just said that. but I think that.
I hear the trolls now.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of news guys that are probably very upset and everything right at the moment. But I really understand all the different pieces of log and everything else, so I would go down that path. If I was making content for YouTube and I wanted to look as good as it possibly can, this is the camera.
Right.
You know, for $2,500, $2,500. I mean, like,
so good.
There's so many of us that use FS100s and FS5 or FX, you know, and there's all these things, and there's FX9s and there's FS7s and FX7s. Anyway, so
or C200.
There's all in the C200s and 300s and everything else. And if you look at the price point here, what I can tell you is the footage looks amazing. That the price per performance is better than any camera that I've ever seen at any price.
Right.
I'm still mystified by how they put this much into this camera. So when you look at it, you think, well, how can it really have all of that? Well, it does. It just simply does.
It's definitely a dollar for dollar value that I don't think can be beat right now.
Yeah, so if I was going to build something for online content, if I was doing promotional content for clients, now if money was no object, and if I was shooting a feature film, I'm still going to use an ARRI. Like you know, like I just want to. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying that this is what I'm saying is this is not the replacement for. This is not competing.
Right.
Because I've seen people actually compare this. and they go, we're going to do a head-to-head with the Blackmagic against the Arri. The Arri has a better sensor. It has better tools. It has better color science. It has better, and it's 20 times more expensive, 20, 30 times more expensive.
And we're not doing a head-to-head here. We're just giving you, this is what this awesome camera offers, and this is what you're going to get out of it if you put a little bit of work behind it.
Yeah, and it is a stunning camera at the price. But if I was doing any kind of web content, even some TV stuff, lower budget. Right. But I really want to push the outer envelope of high quality. This is the camera I would use. This is my carry camera. This is in my backpack all the time. Even with all this stuff, I have a big backpack.
I highly recommend if you could get yourself a gimbal with it, it would be great. Or get yourself some handles like you have on your rig here, something to help keep you stabilized. You can use a stabilized lens.
It is one of my complaints here is that I do wish that this popped out. So it was something that, and I think Tilta makes a piece that you can put on it that does that. They have a whole nother rig, and I think that rig actually has the ability to put a little HDMI input that you can roll up. The only time that you feel like that this is an issue is, so if I'm shooting handheld, and I'm going to shoot someone, you get into this. So normally what we're used to is if I've got a handheld, I'm like this. I've got it right up against me, and it's not only stable, but it puts a lot less pressure on my arms. And so I'm looking at usually the flip open, right? And so even with the Ursas, you get kind of, even though they're big cameras, you get kind of used to that. And so not having this be able to roll up means that you're kind of like this all the time. So it pushes your arms out a little bit. It's a little harder to stay stable, although I shot some cooking stuff in India at a little parathas. They were making parathas, and so I shot a bunch of stuff. Well, I'll put some of the handheld stuff I shot with there, so you can get kind of a sense of it. And just remember that I'm shooting it with this lens. Like, I'm just kind of like, so you'll see I go in and out of focus and everything else.
Focus.
But yeah, pull focus at 6:30 a.m. while the guy's not stopping. He's just making it, and I'm just following along. It's not like it was a shoot, And so he was just nice enough to let me
be a fly on the wall, if you will.
Exactly, and I paid $3 for my paratha instead of 30 cents. So I was a big whale coming in and buying some more parathas. So anyway, but we'll put some of that footage up. But you'll see some handheld there, and I'm already looking at trying to find small screens that I can kind of pop up here. That I can do that work with, but I haven't quite rigged that out yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They give you these extra ports on the side, just in case you want to have an external monitor to make it easier to mount it to a rig and be able to see. I give them that. I give them credit for that. But I totally agree with you because I'm used to the very screens that Canon has on some of their cameras. It's just simple. So they didn't want to do that. That's fine. Everything else is totally killing it with this camera.
Yeah. I think that for me the only thing was dealing with the only challenge that I had was the frame rate, not being able to get a 5994 at 6K. The audio input on the side of just being weird. Those are the little things that, and the flip out screen. But and the camera and the button that when you take the picture, you don't know if you're really taking a picture. They'll fix that.
But are you concentrating on the stills? If you're
Here's the deal: is like
film,
I want to be able to shoot stills with it as well, and so it's not that big of a deal. None of the things I just mentioned are deal breakers by any means. They are like the last 5% of like, I wish this was a little better. Again, it's the best camera. I'm just saying it's not perfect from my perspective, but really close, and it's and those little things. And the great thing about buying Blackmagic is, they're going to be updating it every 2 or 3 months. So there was already some updates that I haven't put on. And I think you have on.
Yeah, we had new firmware.
It has the new leveling, display and other things like that. So the best thing is when you buy the camera, you're not like, usually when you're buying other cameras, you have to call engineering, you might have to pay for it, you might have to, and this one is just like, it's up. So I think that we'll continue to see more from the camera.
All right, we'll put links to beautiful footage in the bottom of this video where you can check it out in 6K, because of course this isn't filmed in 6K. And we'll also put some links to show where you can purchase this Blackmagic Design for its magical price of $2,500. Anything else before we sign off, Mr. Lindsay?
That's all I got.
All right, well, thank you all for watching this episode of Hands on Tech here on twit.tv. If you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and do so in your favorite podcatcher of choice, whether it's Stitcher, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, what have you. Just hit subscribe and then share this out with other people in your friends and family and big circle and so forth. Thank you all for watching this here episode. We'll catch you again next time on Hands on Tech. Take care.
Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.